Wow, 4 years. Look at that. I did it. We did it. I can't do this without my recovery group and the people that help keep me sober. 4 years on the alcohol-free diet today. And man, life is different. Life is good. Look at this view I get to have every morning. This is a direct result of the miracles that can take place from sobriety. So many other miracles have taken place in my life, but I just remember, 4 years ago today, man, I was in a really rough spot, man. I was in real trouble. But even worse, well, not worse, but 12 years ago, I was homeless. I literally was homeless. I had got my a second DUI in a short period of time, so my license was revoked for almost 5 years. I got it in Arizona, and it transferred back to Michigan, and my license was gone. So it was just a matter of time. I lost my job. I lost my house that I was paying for that I owned in Michigan, as well as the house that I was renting in Scottsdale, Arizona. Lost my, I drove illegally for a while, but then they eventually found my car, and my car got taken away, so my car was repossessed. I went through a bankruptcy, lost my house, lost my freedom, lost my dignity, lost everything, and I had really no opportunity. I was 35 years old, and I was squatting in my buddy's basement in a house that he was renting, and the landlord wasn't paying the mortgage with it, so the house was in foreclosure from October to January. We literally lived in a basement of a house on a mat, throwing DJ parties with the electricity that we had, at least, we just just to make ends meet. We had no gas, but we did have electricity, so we had space heaters. But anyway, life was just upside down. It was a real mess. And that was just 12 years ago. And I got into AA, and I said, you know what, I'm going to quit drinking, and I'm going to quit smoking cigarettes. I'm going to quit doing a lot of the things that I was doing. I put myself in mental prison. If you heard any of my other videos from before, there was a very close call that happened that night. And I said, you know what, if I would have gone to prison, who in here in this room would have visited me? And I realized none of them would have. Probably none of them would have taken the time to fill out the visitor paperwork to begin with. And so I kicked everybody out of my life, and I pretended that I was in jail on work release. And I started a business that I could do basically with my feet, my hand, and a computer. And eventually, a girl that I was dating was driving me around to a lot of my customer appointments. And I got off my ass, and life started working for me. And within just a few months, things really started turning around. I was actually making more money doing this on my own than I ever was working for somebody else. And I was doing it without a driver's license or a car. And I was still able to take care of my girlfriend and take care of the people that I needed to take care of in the process. And man, life started going good. And it was probably about 3 years into it, I started thinking, well, I did all these things. These miracles were taking place because of my great willpower, my great drive, and my focus and my decision making. And instead of staying humble and really, giving that to the program, I started taking the credit for that myself, and along with my confidence, parallel with that was my ego, and my ego was telling me that I was in control again. And that's a dangerous spot for me, because when I believe that I'm in control of things is when I'm really the most out of control, and I don't catch myself. And so after 4 years, I wasn't going to meetings. I was just staying, dry by myself, and I accidentally had a hot chocolate that had Kahlua in it that was meant for somebody else. And when I tasted the alcohol in it, I said, you know what, F it. I'm just going to keep drinking it. Who cares? I can do this. I've done this on my own. And then I really wanted to test myself. So I went across the street to the bar and I said, screw it. I already blew my 4-year streak, so 4.5 years. So why not go for it? And my friend Sue, who I see every day almost now, she was working as the bartender. She wouldn't serve me. And finally I got mad at her. I went to someone else and they served me. And I said, there, now I intentionally did it. And then I said, I'm just going to manage my drinking. I'm going to drink like a gentleman. I'm going to drink just on the weekends, or when I do drink, I'm only going to have 2, and that way I don't get too out of line and I don't lose control. And I did that for about a year, and a year went by, and man, I was really out of control. I didn't catch myself right away, but I got to a point where life was. I burned through that relationship. I was single again. Then I got into another relationship, and with that one, I had a child, and I burnt my bridge there. My son was a couple years old, and I started drinking, and I was trying to just drink like a gentleman, just very little bit here and there, a little bit there. And then I gave myself permission when I was in Miami one time just to go for it. I had some people with me that I really wanted to impress in business, and they've never been to Miami, and I knew Miami like the back of my hand. So I knew all the club owners and major promoters out there because I was a promoter myself, so I had a lot of really good connections out there, and I showed them a good time. Started at this little dive bar, and then I took them to the clubs, and then they, at 4 o'clock in the morning, we getting kicked out of the Clevelander, and I was blackout drunk. And earlier on the night, I gave my keys to the rental car to Denny, the guy that I was with, one of the guys I was with. And by the end of the night, he had a flight at 7 in the morning, and it was 4 a.m. and getting kicked out of the bar. He goes, Joe, I'm going to get on the flight, but I got to give you these keys back because I'm not going to see you again. Promise me you're not going to drive. And I said, Denny, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to drive. He goes, you swear to me. You promise me you're not going to drive. And I said, Denny, I'm not going to drive. Okay, promise me. I promised you, Denny. So he gives me the keys back. And I was going to get a cab, and my phone was dead. And so I walked over to Washington Avenue where one of the other clubs was getting out, and I met some girl in the street, and I started making out with her out at randomly. She was drunk, I was drunk, and wanted to go back to my hotel. And meanwhile, I have my son, who's a baby at home, and his mom, who I was in a committed relationship with at the time, and I'm cheating on her with some random girl. And I get back to my hotel and find out she's a hooker, kick her out, and then I'm feeling like horrible. Here I am. I picked some girl up, brought her back to my hotel. I drove, even though I promised I wasn't going to drive. The orange barrels, the construction barrels, were just like an orange blur. I couldn't even really make them out. And I'm just lucky I didn't kill anybody or kill us or even get pulled over that night, because that would have been felony DUI, man. Life would have completely changed for me at that moment if I would have got caught. And after I kicked the hooker out of the hotel, and I started drinking out of the minibar, stuff that I wouldn't even normally drink, like Sterling Tanqueray and things like that. And man, my life was out of control, and I started really hating myself. The emotional swing that was going on in my head was just insane. I was so drunk, I didn't know what I was thinking, and for that brief moment, I just felt so much pain and shame that I wanted to die. And I was in the room 1504 of the Fontainebleau in Miami, and I climbed onto my balcony, and I'm looking down at the roof 15 stories below, and I was just trying to give myself enough courage to jump. I was literally on the edge of my seat like this, on the edge of the bar, or on the edge of the balcony, trying to just give myself the courage to just do that, because I knew that in just a couple seconds it'd be all over, and I wouldn't drag my family down, I wouldn't drag my employees down, I wouldn't bring anybody else into my pain. And my phone was plugged in next to my bed in the room, and it kept going off, and this is like 7 o'clock in the morning. I've been drinking for 12 hours straight now. And the only thing I could think of was maybe an emergency happened with my son and something was wrong. So that prompted me to get off the balcony that I was, or the ledge on the balcony that I was sitting on for 15 minutes, trying to talk myself into quit being such a wimp and just jump. And I'm glad that phone call came over and over and over again. It was my buddy Mark, and my Mark said, "Hey, you're in Miami?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, you didn't tell me you're in Miami. I just saw it on Facebook." I'm like, "You did?" Didn't know what I posted. And he says, "Yeah, where you at?" He goes, "You don't sound sober. Are you sober?" I'm like, "No." And I broke down. I started crying. And I said, "Mark, I almost killed myself." He goes, "What?" And he talked to me, and he says, "You got to get back in the program, man." And he goes, "I'm going to be your sponsor." And he guided me through the first 90 days of recovery. He made me do a 90-90. I said, "Mark, I got a business. I don't got time." He goes, "You almost died. You got plenty of time. If you'd have jumped, you wouldn't have time for work either. So you got to go to meetings." And so he forced me, and he was on my ass, and he found me really, really kicked my butt. And then I got a sponsor locally that really kicked my ass as well, that called me out on my shit. Not a sponsor that was going to let me get away with everything. I need someone that really called me out. And those people did, and it got me sober, and I started working the program for 16 months. I stayed sober that time, and I thought for sure after that close episode of almost death and that pain and shame and the humiliation and just the desperation that I was feeling, and just that horrible feeling that I had inside my body during those moments, that pain would always stay in my mind, that there's no way in hell that I would ever take a chance at drinking again. But somewhere along the line, after about 12 of those 16 months, I told myself that I was too busy to go to meetings. And I started, instead of going every day, I started going a couple times a week, and then once a week, and then sooner or later it was just a couple times a month, and then once a month, and then I just stopped going altogether. And there was about 4 months that I went without drinking, where I wasn't drinking, but I wasn't going to meetings, and I wasn't doing the program at all to help keep me honest, to help keep my thinking straight. And anybody who's been around will always tell you it's a thinking disease more than it's a drinking disease, because it's my thoughts that get at me, that allow me to justify the action. And it wasn't long. And when I started drinking, I just tried to do it. I was at a beach with a girl I started seeing, and her friend, and I just felt like the odd man out not drinking, and I wanted to have a drink with them. I said, "F it," and they go, "What are you doing?" I said, "You don't drink." I'm like, "Whatever." I just drank, and they're like, "Oh, okay." I had another one, and then it just became fun, and I was managing it. I was only drinking 2 or 3. I knew that if I would have had 5 or 6, then I would probably go out of control. So I didn't go in the danger zone. But the danger zone started when I stopped going to meetings, because my thinking started getting off track, and it was just a snowball effect. And I didn't catch myself. I didn't realize how off track I was. I was checked out, so checked out that I didn't realize I was even checked out. That's what my old sponsor used to say. Anyway, got pulled over in my Ferrari a couple months after that. I blew a .04. A cop let me go, and he says, I could take you to jail because you already have 2 DUIs, and you're obviously impaired. Just because I didn't get you on my radar, I saw your car and heard your car speeding, and he goes, you're definitely impaired by alcohol. He goes, but I'm going to give you a break because you're going to go to prison for 2 years if I do take you to jail today for driving impaired. I said, thank you. And he let me go, and I said I would never drink and drive ever again, and within a couple months I was drinking and driving again, and I almost had another very close call, and luckily got through that by basically a technicality. It was God's good grace that got me through that, man. I was right on the edge, and man, I got lucky. That was 4 years ago, and I said, that's it, man. That's it. If feeling suicidal and willing to throw my child away, throwing everything away, being homeless, losing my freedom, having my license revoked, and none of those things stopped me from drinking, losing everything. That pain was so great, so great. But I have the ism. I have that incredibly short memory. And I have that cockiness, that stubbornness that tells me that I'm in control of shit that I'm really not in control of. I have this sickness. I'm a sociopath to some degree when you think about it. So I need to keep my thinking in line. And the only way I can do that is if I keep hanging around other people that are recovering. And I hold myself accountable, and I let them hold me accountable. And I hold others accountable because it keeps me responsible. And so life has been good. Every time that I've gotten sober for a period of time, the miracles start happening. The freedom of economic insecurity leaves us. The enabled ability to handle situations that used to baffle us, happens. I mean, there's so many. The relationships get better. The surroundings get better. The air feels fresher. I'm able to be more present. I mean, look at this godly view I get to have every single morning. And I got another house with the same view right up the street. Actually, a better view than this one. And none of these things would have been possible without the clearing of AA. I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm saying this to impress upon you the fact that this program worked very, very, very well for me. And it continues to work, and the miracles continue to show up, and it allows me to show up as a better father, as a better business owner, as a better coach, as a better partner, as a better sponsor, as a better sponsee. The miracles never stop coming the more I work this program. So I'm 4 years in today, and man, I'm lucky. And I'm starting another 4th step. In fact, I'm going deeper and deeper. The deeper I go in this, the greater, the more layers of the onion that I peel back, and the more honest I become, the better life gets. The better I'm able to live a life that I love. And I'm not there yet. I'm still in the pursuit of happiness, joy, and freedom. But I'm definitely a lot closer than I've ever been. And it's through the miracles of this program. And I do service now. And one of the things, and I can never make an excuse for missing a meeting. So about a little less than a year ago, I purchased the building that I operate my business out of. And we only use about maybe a half of the building. And then they have a tenant upstairs. But I devoted part of that space inside the building for recovery rooms. It's called the recovery room. And in there's some workout equipment, a pool table, so it was a coffee, and also AA. And we created a meeting space in there that meets in person on Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon Eastern time. And we also made it a hybrid meeting, so that way people from other states that I've connected with in the program, in Hawaii, California, Colorado, Massachusetts, New York, any of those people, Miami, if any of those people want to come to that meeting, they can come to that meeting by just going to the website and clicking the one link. If they have Zoom on their phone, they could join the meeting every Tuesday and Thursday. It's at 12steproom.com. And it's also a place that anybody who's struggling that just needs a meeting, whether it's 6 o'clock in the morning and they're in Istanbul, Turkey, or wherever they're at, anywhere in the world, any time of the day, they can go to 12steproom.com, click on the 24/7 international meeting link, and within a few seconds, they're in a meeting. And they don't have to commit to being sober for the rest of their life or even for that day. They just have to have the desire to stop drinking. So if you or anyone you know has that desire, they're welcome to join that room at 12steproom.com. And it's spelled out 12steproom or 12steproom.com. So that's my service, and that's what I do to help keep me sober. So I keep myself accountable and never have an excuse for missing a meeting, and I can stay sober.